Hi, I'm Paul Guppy. I'm Vice President for the Washington Policy Center, and this is our regular update that we send out, letting you know what issues we're working on and what great events we have coming up. So we are tracking very closely all of the public issues that we work on, and I'll just give a few highlights right here. The number one concern, of course, that we all have across Washington state and the nation is what's going on with COVID restrictions, when we will be able to get back to a more normal kind of economic and social life, when schools will open. That is something that we're tracking very closely. Lead Finna on our staff is particularly working with education leaders and school districts across the state so that public schools can reopen safely to in-person instruction this school year. One model that she is pointing out is that there is a parallel education system right next to the public one, and that is private schools, charter public schools, and online learning schools that have been operating for a long time. All of those have been functioning with in-person instruction, except the online schools. That's the normal way they work. But private schools and charter schools have been operating with in-person instruction, and so LEAVE is encouraging public school districts to go in the same direction. The other research that we've done is Todd Myers has looked at data regarding the impact of the COVID shutdown on economic activity, emotional and social pressure that puts on people. And by using government statistics, he has shown that through 2020 and the first half of 2021, there's actually been a 50% increase in what researchers call excess deaths. So in other words, you look at a base year like 2019, 2018, 2017, a certain number of Washingtonians pass away every year. That's a predictable pattern. And then that number increased under COVID, as you would expect. However, Todd found that there was about a 50% increase. For every 2 COVID deaths, there seemed to be an additional excess death from a different cause. And so whether medically related or related to suicide and depression. But Todd's finding was that the COVID restrictions themselves impose a certain cost on society. So when Governor Inslee is saying that he's doing all these restrictions in order to save lives, he's not looking at the other side of the ledger, which is the restrictions themselves seem to have a high social cost, and that's something that we need to take into account. In addition to that, Maria Frost has been following transportation issues, big debate at the national level over a huge transportation bill that's moving through Congress. But what Maria saw on page 508 of a 2,000-page bill was a pilot project for a per mile transportation tax. Maria has already participated in a pilot project at the state level, and this is an effort by some national leaders and also in Washington state to add on a odometer tax or a transponder tax, GPS type device that would be on your car that would report to the state how many miles that you've driven, and then you would pay a tax on the per mile amount that you have driven. This apparently would so far be in addition to the gas tax. So what Maria is pointing out is that if we want to change to a different kind of system, that the gas tax should then go down to 0 or be traded off in some way. But instead, she's finding that there is now a national per mile tax, if this bill is signed by President Biden, to look at adding a new kind of transportation tax. The other issue Maria has been looking at is maintaining the integrity of the Highway Trust Fund, both at the national level and at the state level. And again, she's finding that there are advocates that continually erode the safeguards that are put into gas taxes to be used for road and highway purposes. Instead, more and more of that money is being siphoned off for mass transit, bike lanes, other kinds of projects that are not part of the original Highway Trust Fund. Our concern regarding the way our government works is that undermines the idea of trust fund. So Washington state has dozens of trust funds for dedicated purposes, but if lawmakers begin to treat that as just free for all money that they can use for any purpose, it undermines the understanding of why the public supports many of these fees in the first place, that they are user fees that go into a trust fund, dedicated, and will be used to provide a certain public service. We're finding that understanding that the public has trusted in and believed in for so many years is starting to break down, and policymakers, whether it's in transportation or other areas, are starting to just spend trust fund money for general purposes. Another issue that we're following very closely, Elizabeth Hubdy on our staff is now I don't think she volunteered for this position, but she is the statewide independent expert on a new long-term care mandate that the legislature enacted back in the spring, and which will require every W-2 wage earner in the state to pay a new tax starting on January 1st of next year. The tax is 58 cents per $100 earned. There is no income cap on that, so it can go as high as whatever income you earn. And that is to go into a new, guess what, a new trust fund for a long-term care program that lawmakers have created. This is mandatory participation. It is meant to provide care for people at end of life. However, it is crowding out the private long-term care insurance market. And Elizabeth has discovered that there are many restrictions on this program. If you are an out-of-state, if you move out of state to retire, you get no benefit. If you're going to retire in the next 3 to 5 years, you also get no benefit because you haven't paid in long enough according to the system. And also she's found that people who are residents of Idaho and Oregon who commute and work in Washington state will also have to pay into this plan, but again, they will receive no benefit. So there is already a great deal of discontent about how this program is going to work. The general public is starting to discover that they will soon be paying a new payroll tax. People don't quite understand what it's for or whether the benefit is worthwhile. And some lawmakers are already looking at proposing repeal of this tax because it's one of those public issues where the more people find out about it, the less that they like it. So at some point, even elected politicians will have to pay attention to this and do something about it. Repealing the program is the best idea in our view, and then cutting insurance regulations, encouraging a more vibrant competitive market, and allowing Washingtonians to shop for insurance in any state, for example, on a national basis, is a way so that individuals and families can get access to affordable long-term care insurance without being forced into a government program. And then the last issue I'll mention is we're seeing movement across the state at the local level to enact no local income tax bans. The city of Yakima just placed a measure on the ballot that they'll be voting on in November, which says that no income tax can be enacted by the city of Yakima. Spokane has already done the same thing. A half a dozen other towns and cities across Washington have done that. Jason Mercier on our staff is working on this closely to provide technical assistance for putting these resolutions together. And the reason for that is many people across the state see the movement towards a state income tax. The legislature enacted a capital gains income tax just a few months ago that is being contested in court. And the city of Seattle also enacted its own income tax locally, which was later struck down by the courts. But still, Jason can see that the technical legal movement is underway to create a statewide income tax at some point. So the response to that has been these local efforts to say no local income tax in our city or our town, in addition to trying to resist the imposition of a statewide income tax in Washington state. So those are some of the issues we're working on. In addition, we're excited to return to in-person events. We just had a great event with many of our supporters just recently, and our annual dinners are planned for October 1st in Bellevue and October 15th in Spokane. We're moving ahead with those. We also had a summer social event with our Young Professionals program on the waterfront in Seattle. It was a lot of fun, beautiful summer evening, and we're planning more events coming up with an on-the-go feature that'll be online where we update on issues. That's on September 14th, and everyone is invited to join that. And then later on, we have a solution series event in Spokane, and that'll be on September 22nd. So check our website for the latest information. But the exciting thing is we are starting to return to in-person events, hosting more events, and we will continue to do events online because we're finding that people around the state like to participate in those. And anyone who's receiving this video is welcome to sign up for those. And lastly, I'll just sign off with our usual appreciation for all of the support we received from across the state. It's been a very high pressure time. Our staff has remained active, and Washington Policy Center has actually done very well. And I think that's because people see the need for our research and commentary when COVID or schools or what's happening with the economy or inflation that might be coming or increased taxes. They know that the Policy Center is a great resource to answer questions about what's happening, and we'll continue to do that. So with that, I'll sign off. Thank you very much.